Hey there, friends. Welcome back to As a Man Thinketh on Unas TV. Today I want to talk about something that I take very seriously, and it's an unnerving pattern that I've seen happening with municipalities specifically. And these stories that I'm about to share with you should have some of you fuming. But educating our youth, educating our children should be something that is at the top of our list as parents. And the school system has failed over the years. We pulled our kids out of the school system. My youngest has never been in the school system. And they're educated on things on a daily basis that other kids don't get. I mean, and it's amazing to me how much higher these kids score, my kids and other kids that I know that are homeschooled score compared to the public school system. Some people think it's unfair. They think that, not everybody can make those sacrifices and stay home with their kids. It's a sacrifice you make by choice, and you find a way to do it if it's important to you. And I think that raising our kids to understand things about like where their food comes from, what really is life, what is the life cycle, how does all this stuff work? What are traditional skill sets that could teach them how to survive when things get tough? They're not going to learn that in their regular curriculum at school. But it seems like there's a movement to stop our kids and stop the majority of children from learning these things. It's like people hear about home education programs and they specifically target them, go after them. That's how a farm feels in Howell, New Jersey. And I know what you're thinking, well, this is New Jersey. But in New Jersey, Howell, New Jersey, there is an animal farm that feels as though they've been targeted. Now, Howell, New Jersey has made farming a lot more difficult for their farmers. Many of you have noticed that we keep wearing these leather patch hats that say defend the right to farm on them. These leather patch hats support our nonprofit, Meet My Neighbor Productions. You can get your hat at Unas Trading Co. and help us defend the right to farm through education, outreach, and, as we've been doing over the last couple of years, farm relief efforts. So get your leather patch hat and let others know that you defend the right to farm. Today, as a farmer, you can't make necessarily the 100% of your income off of the farm. It takes a lot of work because we have created a society of people that, where most animals on this planet, most living creatures on this planet spend 75% of their lifetime looking for food, looking to survive. The human race is very different. If you think about the percentage of our income that actually goes towards feeding us, it has historically been very low, at least within, the last, 5 or 6 decades. Before that, it would have been a lot higher. And as you continue back, it goes higher and higher and higher. I mean, really, during the Victorian age, that's when food prices started becoming cheaper and cheaper. And the government likes that and big business likes that because that allows you, the consumer, to spend more of your money on things like flat screen TVs, new cell phones every time they come out with one. It allows you to be distracted as well, and it disconnects you from reality, and they have better control over you, frankly. If the more that you are distracted by all these other things, the more control, the easier it is to control you. And that's where I think, it is one of those things where we want to make things cheaper for people, we want to make things better for people, and it turns into, we could actually utilize this to our advantage. And, when you look at the food supply and you look at how many companies are actually behind the food supply, it's just a handful. There's like 5 or 6 companies that control 90% of the foods that you buy in the grocery stores. And that is an immense amount of control because they have control over what goes into your body. I don't mean to get on a soapbox about this, but this is a big issue. Every day, more and more Americans are waking up to the fact that our society is simply unhealthy. We've been being fed poisons and being told to put poisons on our body by corporate America for years. A lot of the things that we've been told were bad for us, like animal fats, are actually good for our bodies. Your skin is the largest organ of your body, which is why on Unas Trading Co., we're pleased to offer you guys bison tallow lotions and creams. These bison tallow lotions and creams are amazing. They're not made by a big corporation. They're made by a homesteader, just like you guys, our friends out of Canada, Dr. Nathaniel and Susan Ostashowski. We've visited numerous bison ranches and farms and parks across the entire continent of North America. And these are some really great people who have come up with some really great products, and you can buy them on Yanasa Trading Co. and support this program and support your health all at the same time. So my point is that in Howell, New Jersey, they've made it hard for farmers. Farmers rely on external income on their farm, agritourism, events, people coming to their farm to shop. And in Howell, New Jersey, they put an end to a lot of that. They said, look, you can't have people come to your farm. You can't have events. You can't do these things. And then they kind of backed off and said, okay, well, you can do it if you get a permit. And then, that lightened up a little more, and they loosened up what the permitting process looks like, so that it's a little easier for these farms to survive. They have it hard enough. Let's make it just a little bit harder for them to survive so we can get our $50 permit fee. And that's how Howell, New Jersey works. But there's one particular farm in Howell, New Jersey that they don't want people coming to. And they don't want people coming to it, and they've been fighting them in court. And honestly, the first judge shut them down and said, you can't do that. And now they're going to the Superior Court. But this is an animal sanctuary. It's called Samrock Stables, and they have about 60 animals on the farm. It is a farm. It gets inspected, and they do really well on their county agricultural inspections. Everything's up to par. But part of their farm is, number one, rescuing animals, but also they use animals for therapy. Now, when you think of a farm, you think of a farm producing food. But, there are lots of different types of farms. A farm that works with, connecting people and animals for therapy reasons is still a farm. It's still providing an agricultural service. That's not what the problem is, though, for Howell, New Jersey. The problem for Howell, New Jersey is that they're calling this farm a school. They're saying this isn't actually a farm, this is a school. Well, what makes them a school? In their advertising, they advertise that they provide homeschool activities, homeschool education opportunities for parents to bring their kids out on certain days and enjoy an educational experience for the homeschool kids. They also do this for the public school system, and they have lots of field trips that have come out to their farm. The county, the Howell, the city of Howell would like you to think that it is just a school, and it is not a farm at all. But like I said, education, outreach, all these things are a part of farming and agriculture. They have to be. And having a few days a week where kids come out to learn about to take part in a homeschool program and learn about agriculture is still a part of farming and agriculture. Back in the day, kids would have actually gotten to school in the morning and then gone and worked on the farm in the afternoon. Kids have always played a big role in the farming community.
Ancient eras and natural selection have refined and tailored pristine fibers with the resilience for today's days. Evolving beyond the last ice age, bison wool is nature's most dependable activewear. Buffalo Wool Company, 100% proven by nature, 100% American-made.
Check out the Buffalo Wool Company collection at yanasatradingco.com. According to Betty Velez Gimbel, I hope I said that name correctly, leader of Howell Farms United, she says that Samrock Stables has been accused of running a traditional school, and that's not accurate. She says she's visited the farm on multiple occasions to speak with Jules and Angel, the owners of the farm, and walked through the farm to discuss the agricultural management practices, the learning centers around agriculture, the children garden, work with the animals, and learn livestock care and equine skills. According to the farm owner, the whole thing is a deflection from the core issue, that farm classes are permitted by law, and any complaints against a commercial farm must be heard in the first instance by the Monmouth County Agricultural Department Board. And she said that they are confident in their identity as a legitimate farm with practices deeply rooted in agriculture and compliance with state laws and regulations. Now, apparently, The point person on this, Matthew Howard, has actually never been out to their farm. He's never been out there to inspect it. He's never been out there to see the farm in practice. Where this came down to was an advertisement that they had put out for homeschoolers, and then the town came in, probably having a problem in general with people homeschooling their kids, because believe it or not, there are people who just, for whatever reason, don't want kids to be highly educated, right? So they came out and said, look, you either need to put on your flyers, this is the tricky part, you either need to put on your flyers that this is not an accredited education, or we're going to say that you're operating as a school and we're going to shut you down. This isn't the first time. This is like these small municipalities sometimes think that they're much stronger than they are. State laws will often override them, and I'm not sure how it works in New Jersey, but like here in North Carolina, where this other instance is actually taking place, a lot of times agriculture is protected by law, by state law, above and beyond what a city could do or a county could do. But then, there are certain situations where city ordinances and things can prevent livestock and other things. And so it's important to, understand the laws of your state and how all this works out. But from what I'm understanding is Howell is actually trying to change their local zoning ordinances in ways that would further impact the operation of this particular education farm. An education farm that is providing opportunities for homeschool kids to learn about agriculture. That's what they have a problem with. In Winston-Salem, North Carolina, there's a similar situation with a similar farm. And I would almost say, like, their operations are almost identical in that they are a part rescue farm. They do some therapy work with folks, and then they also have a lot of educational programs specifically geared towards homeschool children. The one in Winston-Salem is called Fairytale Farm Animal Sanctuary, and they have actually been shut down.
Fairytale Farm is home to donkeys, bunnies, ducks, goats, and more. Many of them have unique challenges, but a shadow has fallen over Fairytale Farm. Despite being told at first that operating a sanctuary on their property was legal, city officials recently discovered that the zoning code doesn't actually permit an animal sanctuary. The Dunkels were ordered to shut down.
It's extremely frustrating to us that we're being told by the zoning office we literally can't have groups of friends over because we've been told they will assume that it's part of the sanctuary work.
The community rallied behind Fairytale Farm, and the city retreated from its order to close. But there are still restrictions that could make it impossible for the sanctuary to support itself and stay open.
The animals can be here, but we can't have volunteer programs, classes, events, anything like that.
And what's funny about this particular farm is that daycares are allowed within city limits, the city ordinances. Farms are allowed within their area. They're allowed to have livestock. That part is still there. They just, without having their on-farm businesses, it's hard to take care of all the animals. So, you're allowed to have all the things that they're offering on their farm within the ordinances of where they live. But by combining them, the city has shut them down. Arguably, in my perspective, what this comes down to is some advocate that doesn't like the fact that these homeschool kids are having an opportunity to go out and learn traditional skills about farming and agriculture from what they're calling a school, which is not actually a school. It's a farm that offers educational opportunities. And so, here you're starting to see kind of a pattern. You see it up in New Jersey, you're seeing it in a municipality in North Carolina. And if you look at a farm in Broward County down in Florida, and like I said, these are local municipalities. This isn't the state, this isn't the county, or Florida might be the county. I think it's the city as well. And these are local politicians who get elected to a position that's part-time, doesn't paid, but they feel the power, And I don't know if you've ever experienced that in your community, but sometimes it could be a bit annoying. I mean, they also do some good things, right? I mean, I can't come up with a list on the top of my head, but there's a lot of good things to your local elected officials, especially if they do a good job. But number one, these animal sanctuaries, farms, educational farms, they are farms. They're not doing anything different than any other farm. By having some kids come out a couple times a year, or for a weekly homeschool program, they're not harming anybody. And it's the way that the farm functions and operates. And it's an important part of agriculture, and it's an important part of bringing farmers up into our future. Like, people don't realize this, but the farming community in the United States is aging out dramatically. And if we don't have more people coming up saying, I want to be a farmer, we're not going to have food in the future grown in this country. I mean, it takes somebody wanting to do that job. And nobody's ever going to want to do that job unless they learn about it, unless they see what the possibilities of it are. Okay, so the one down in Florida is county officials. It's Broward County. They issued a citation against Maiden Broward, which is a nonprofit, which uses a community garden to teach children about food preservation and how to sew, garden, cook, and make soap. Stay clean, right? Okay, so apparently there's a vacant lot in Broward County. It is zoned residential, but she's planted fruit trees, she's planted gardens. I don't know how many of you that live in a residential neighborhood that don't have gardens. And she's created this nonprofit for kids to come out and learn about growing food. It's a pretty harmless thing. They're learning about growing food. Which reminds me, do you remember the article that came out last January, not January 2025, but January 2024, where they were saying that home gardening and homegrown foods create up to 5 times more carbon? Clearly there is an attack on growing our own food. But in all of these 3 cases that I'm talking about, Samrock Farms, the Fairytale Farm in Winston-Salem, and now this community garden in Broward County, the one thing that they all have in common that's getting them shut down, because I've seen many, many community gardens, even in Broward County, that are, on a residential lot somewhere within a community. People come, in some cases, they're set up so people can grow on their own little plats. It's normally not a problem. The only thing that makes all 3 of these a problem for these officials is the fact that they are teaching kids about how to grow food. I think you'll notice too, like with a lot of these ordinances, there's a certain type of political mindset within these particular areas that formulate these types of policies. In Miami, for example, I think it's called Miami Shores, it's a village, Miami. They actually made it illegal for people to grow vegetables in their front yard. Doesn't matter how pretty you make your garden look, you just can't grow vegetables, you can't grow edible food in your front yard. Move the orange tree to the back, this is Florida, get the coconut trees out of there. And that one in Miami Shores actually led to a legal fight at the state level, where the state passed a law allowing residents of the state to grow their own food. I think you have to have a law to override all of these local jurisdictions is kind of crazy. So technically, in 2019, when that law passed, a community garden in Broward County shouldn't be illegal. But again, like I said, the only thing that really makes it illegal, the thing that makes this farm in Howell, New Jersey illegal, the thing that makes this farm in Winston-Salem, North Carolina illegal, is the fact that they're educating children, they're educating the youth. And my question to you is, if that's the motive, okay, if we want to shut down farms because they're educating youth, what does that tell you about the people writing these policies, about the people that are putting these zoning policies in place? I mean, if their goal is to stop our youth from learning about agriculture, learning about where their food comes from, learn about growing food, I mean, what do you think their aim is? Some people think that this is about, zoning. It's just a simple zoning issue. I think that, there's a certain mindset out there that wants to attack those who have, kids that they homeschool, and they don't like the fact that people are moving away from the public indoctrination system. They just don't like that. They want everybody to be in that system, and they find ways around every corner they possibly can to fight every program that they feel threatened by. And by threatened by, if your kids aren't being indoctrinated by our government, they're a danger to society. As many of you know, we have a nonprofit that actually has a separate fund geared towards rural youth development. Just for this reason, we want to support programs that are helping to educate kids in agriculture, outdoor skills, traditional skills, things that will actually get them by in life in tough times. Our kids don't learn enough of that anymore. You have an entire generation right now of young adults who are entering a world where there is a lot going on. A lot of things can happen, and it is a very unstable environment. And the problem with that is that if something happens, I'm not saying something will, but I mean, every day it's looking more and more likely like things are getting rougher out there, right? I mean, do you agree? If something happens, these people are completely unprepared on how to take care of themselves. To me, that's a major national security issue. That's a major threat. Because if we have a society that is incapable of taking care of themselves because they never developed traditional skills, they never figured out how to grow something, then we're in for a heap of trouble. In order for our society to rebuild from, a recession, in order for us to rebuild from a global war, we have to have people who have traditional skill sets, who know how to survive, who know how to offset their income. I don't know, it's a scary thing to think about, but that's my perspective on these cases. These are all cases that are recent cases, there are ongoing cases, and I hope that they find a solution that benefits them. Like I said, the one in Howell, New Jersey, the county's already been shut down by one judge. They've appealed that judge's ruling, but the problem is that they have to determine that farm is not, in fact, a farm, and it's a school. I think they're going to have a hard time doing that. In the meantime, they're making things extremely difficult on these people to operate their farm and keep things going. And that's all they need to do. So they just need to try and figure out a way to put them out of business. Anyway, guys, until next time, stay safe.